Hello and welcome back to another episode of Uncover the Human. This week we are joined by our guest Mirko. He comes to us actually from Sicily. He is the co-founder of the Mastery Hub, which is a conscientious leadership and coach-sulting practice, which is actually a really cool term and one that we'd love to dive into here. He's here to talk to us a little bit about conscious leadership. Welcome, Mirko.
Benvenuto.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks so much, Alex and Cristina. I'm so pleased to be here. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about conscious leadership, what's behind, and consulting. For some, it might be a new term, but let's do a little bit of a step back. So I'll tell you a little bit who I am, what I do, and hopefully we'll learn one thing or two along the journey. Okay?
That's great.
My name is Mirko. I have a very Italian surname. It's Maccarrone. And I'm the CEO and founder of the Mastery app. The Mastery app, we like to define it as the world's first digital consulting platform. We have harmoniously blend coaching and consulting, and we help individuals and businesses master the most important aspects of life, from communication to leadership to biohacking to mindfulness, productivity, and so on. The reason why we got into consulting, onto creating this, is because we were seeing that myself first, I was a marketing consultant, but I also have the tendency to use coaching as one of the most impactful way of getting really the learning across. And as I was doing that, then I created a specific framework that harmoniously blended coaching and consulting. And I got joined by 8 beautiful individuals across 5 countries in this beautiful venture.
That's wonderful.
5 countries. That's amazing. You're already international.
Yes. Already global.
So coach-sulting, tell us a little bit about that. What led into that? What is coach-sulting like?
Yes. Oh, well, look, I find it extremely exciting because effectively, as I was working on creating this framework, I was thinking, what's the best way of infusing and blending coaching and consulting? So created this simple framework, which is called the 4C framework. The 4C framework, it's all about really understanding our client, studying their values, and really working with them towards success. So I know that you guys are really big fan of values, so we're gonna get deep into that in a little bit. But look, the framework is really about, so it all starts with consultation. So that's kind of the first step, right? So we need to understand what's going on, right? What is the reason why you're coming to us, and how can we help you to get there, right? So that's kind of the first pillar, the first C. Consulting. That leads into conversation. Once we understood the reason why you're coming to us, we really want to have an open conversation. We don't want to shy away from the challenges, because we believe that from every single challenge, there could be a great opportunity. But as a human beings, we know that sometimes personally, we can only see the challenges, right? It's like when you see that you are so deep into something that you say, oh my God, I cannot get out. And someone comes with a fresh perspective and says, have you been thinking about that? And you say, oh my God, that's always been inside. That's always been right there. It's always been inside me, but I could never actually unleash it or get it out. So that's kind of the second pillar, is around the conversation. The third pillar is coaching, which I know that your audience knows very well what it is and what coaches do all across the globe. And the fourth pillar is around circle back. So once we have defined the challenges that our clients or business face, once we have started a plan to really get closer to overcome these challenges, then we are doing a circle back. So we are going back from where we started, that we said, how much have you changed? How much have your challenges changed? And we actually help you to overcome some of your challenges / needs. And how about your values? So we're doing an entire studies about understanding what a person or organization stand for, and how can our coaches and consulting programs can basically help the individual and businesses to get there faster, while also having a transparent approach.
I particularly love the coach salting word, because it was one of those moments that you just described. When I read that, when you were launching the Mastery Hub, and I read that on LinkedIn, I was like, somebody figured it out. Oh, wait. It's like, that's what was missing inside of me, that now somebody else has finally told me it can exist. Coming from a consulting background, and Alex does too, and kind of moving into coaching a little bit more in the last 2 or 3 years, I've also found that I can't really separate the two. And even in consulting, I didn't have the formal training of a coach, but I always was a coach. And so I'm always going to be a consultant, and I'm always going to be a coach. And so I was like, how can I blend the two? Because especially in the coach training, there's a lot of talk about separating the two very clearly. It's like, when you're a coach, you're not a consultant. When you're a consultant, you're not a coach. And I'm like, but I'm both all the time. So how can I split my personality? Is it Banner or Hawk today? Hawk is the consultant, Banner is the coach.
Look, that was kind of the reason why the Mastery app came to life, really came to be, because that, let's say, internal friction was inside me all time. And I was really trying to figure out, well, sometimes I'm a consultant, but sometimes I'm a coach. Mm-hmm. And I guess the real challenge is, how do you do it in a way that really harmoniously blend them together without discouraging or without negatively impacting your client in front of you? For me, to be honest, whether we call it coaching, consulting, construction, what is really important is to really provide tangible value to our client, because effectively they are expecting a service from an expert, right? A specific expert in the field. They could bring their input to hopefully solve that problem, address that problem, and get closer to even a new way of seeing things, of seeing the world, or reframing the narrative, the specific person or businesses. And that's kind of what I've noticed over the last couple of months as I've been working extremely hard to bring this to life, is that the consulting was something that a lot of people were just intrigued about. We say, okay, but what is it? How do you think is different from coaching and consulting? I think many of us do that unconsciously. We act like a coach. We act like consultants. It's just really about finding the balance.
I like the idea of both providing value and leading with values. I mean, essentially, you're meeting people and organizations where their values are and trying to figure out how to best live and grow whatever value they're looking for, which I think is something that sometimes gets missed in the traditional consulting models, where we're going in to provide value, but there's generally either a prescribed path or there's hope that it will provide value in this more standard way, rather than what we get when we talk about like organizational values or personal values, where the goals may not quite line up with what, you know, a generic goal might be, what people might say they should do with a business or should be part of.
Absolutely. I think one of the other challenges we're facing as we build the company is that there is always a strong focus on, let's say, one specific pillar. A lot of businesses, a lot of coaching or consulting businesses, they might be focused on one specific thing. This is something I always struggle with, because I like to bring as many experts, as many consultants, as we call it, to basically help organization or individual master the most important aspects of life. That's why in our programs, you will find, from leadership to communication to conscious parenting, we find that parenting is such an important pillar in everyone's relationship. And how basically being parent will create or get you closer to your goal or get you further away from it. And we also have programs in biohacking. It's so important to optimize our vitality and resilience. And on sleep hacking, we have a sleep hacker and a nurse and a wellness coach consultant from Australia that really helps people to optimize their sleep. So we took a little bit of a different approach, because we believe that really to be inspiring leaders, to be inspiring human being, we can not only focus on one pillar of our life. I was a broken corporate person before. And the reason why I've kind of brought all these different programs to the platform is because I was really lacking in so many areas of these consulting programs that I brought. I was sleeping terribly. I wasn't taking care of my body because my focus was only working. And, I was really forgetting how important life is and what you can learn from it day after day. As soon as I started appreciating the little things and started appreciating my body, myself, the way of just stopping and enjoying a mindful moment, that everything started to change.
That's such a good.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I was just gonna say that's a great insight, and is that what led you more towards kind of the conscious idea? You have the conscious leadership, conscious parenting. It seems like a lot of like awareness of what's happening, both just in the small moments and the bigger ones.
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. The reason why I think consciousness is so important is because by being aware, you are less likely to make mistakes. Okay. Because by being aware of something, that means that you're effectively preparing, you are effectively moderating your voice, you're moderating your approach to something. That means that you are equipped with different elements that will help you to be more conscious in that specific action, okay? More conscious in that specific journey that we call life. The reason why I got so fascinated and intrigued with the concept of conscious leadership is probably because I spent close to 10 years in a corporate career across the world in 4 different countries, starting from Italy, moving to the UK, and then I was going sometime in China because the company I was representing was a Chinese company. And then I moved to Australia, and now I moved back home to just kind of focus a little bit on myself and focus on the things that are really important, things that I discovered as I was going through the values. So doing very an inquisitive journey of value foundation, which is, what do I stand for? What are the things that I can do every day and that are actually radically important to become a conscious leader, an inspiring person, and a good human being? Because at the end of the day, call it whatever you like, but the most important thing is to be a good human being and make an impact into this world.
It definitely is. I love the focus on values, clearly. It's not, we have talked about values just a few times on the podcast. I think we're on episode 30, and I think it's probably come up at least 45 to 50 times. But one of the things that I am interested in getting your take on is, where do you see the connection between a fulfilling life where we make an impact and values? Like, I know that it's very clear in my mind. One of the things that I found is that it's not as obvious because it is a newer focus in a way for a lot of other people out there.
That's a really good question, especially fulfillment. I think is something that each and every one of us is constantly pursuing in life. A lot of people, I see the world that each and one of us has the opportunity to wake up in the morning and can make an impact, or basically can empower or disempower. Okay, you can have a real impact, or you can have a less impact in whatever you do. The point is, the choice is always yours. Whether you are waking up in the morning to empower yourself with the world, or whether you're waking up in the morning to disempower yourself and clearly the world around you, the choice is yours. So making a step back, the question you probably have to ask yourself to get there is, what really fulfills me? What are the things, which is what I call the circle of appreciation, which is one of the techniques that I build as part of the conscious leadership program, is really being crystal clear about the 3 to 4 to 5 things that are basically the key pillar of your journey that you could call life, okay? Look, I would be lying if I would say that I wake up every morning and I feel empowered. Sometimes I feel miserable. Sometimes I feel miserable. Sometimes I feel disinspired. But when that happens to me, when that biochemical in my body creates a volcanic erupting reaction inside me, what I do is I go back to my circle of appreciation and I say, why do I do what I do? Okay. And right there, I will find the reasons. I will find very clear values that I have gathered and I have built over the years. And as you know, Cristina, values is not something that, you know, one afternoon you feel inspired to put it down on paper and then you never look back at. You know, it's a continuous evolvement because you're evolving constantly. So going back to your question, I think what I probably would do, I would suggest people and the listener is to create yourself a circle of appreciation. Because once you feel appreciated and once you feel value, that you provide value, then you are much closer to being fulfilled.
I really like that.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Appreciation makes sense. Empowering makes sense. You've mentioned a few terms like empowering and inspiring that is kind of like it's part of the goal. And I think actually on Mastery Hub, you talk about the goal being to elevate human potential. And I'm curious, what does it feel like to you? What do you when you think about inspiring and empowering? Are these core values for you personally? Is this more the Mastery Hub? And what does it mean to empower and inspire?
Really good question. The inspire and empower is probably what I really live off. You know, I spend every single moment of my life trying to have an impact by inspiring and empowering people. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I had a pretty tough childhood growing up in a very dysfunctional families where I was very disempowered throughout probably the most beautiful years of my life. And, you know, as a kid, you are looking for inspiration, understanding what are the things that kind of make you think, right? Make you shift your environment around you. What are the things that want to make you dream bigger and bigger and reinvigorate yourself to become the human being that you want to be one day? But for me, it was very different. The connotation at the time was that everything around me looked toxic. And unfortunately, the value, the belief system were the wrong one. So the only thing that at that time, and I was, of course, struggling to do, was to change my own narrative. That was the only way that kept me inspiring myself and empowering myself. Because what I always tell my client or during podcasts, I always tell people, look, if you don't inspire yourself first, unfortunately, you won't be in a position to inspire anyone. And the reason why is because you are spending most of the day yourself, right? The story that you tell yourself, the narrative that you build for yourself will shape who you are, your values, your action, and the things that you will be doing or not doing in that specific day and time.
Yeah, I find that, and you mentioned this a couple of times. You mentioned that in what you decided to focus the Mastery Hub offerings on and the classes. And also you just mentioned it again on how your own values have come from being disturbed when they were missing. And how, you know, you kind of found the pieces of I'm suffering because these pieces are not there, or I'm not quite sure how to apply them in my life. And so let's create coach salting services around the ones that I have been struggling with. And also let me focus on inspiring and influencing in my life because it was missing so much in my childhood when I was growing up. And I find it very fascinating because I'm a big proponent of we don't change until we're disturbed. And that's the disturbance. It's like we don't change when things are going okay. And we don't change when things are just, you know, coasting along. It's fine. But when we're deeply disturbed, that's when we stop and we say, okay, something is not right. I don't want to continue like this. I don't want to not sleep at night or feel nauseous every time I wake up in the morning and have to go to work. So I'm going to do something about it.
I love that concept. And I can see myself, and I think many people can see straight through it, because I guess when you are in a state of uncertainty, when you are challenging yourself, then you are there to almost challenge the status quo, because you're looking inside yourself and saying, okay, but why I'm not happy? Why I don't feel like I have the energy to wake up in the morning? Why I don't feel like I'm making the impact that I want to? So you're asking yourself all these disempowering questions that sometimes lead to disempowering answer. So how can you turn the disempowering question into empowering question? You need to go back on understanding the reason why you're walking onto this earth. So understanding your DNA core values. One question I asked you guys when we first started talking was what was your defining value, right? Because we have so many values, but there are probably 1 or 2 or 3 that are defining us as a human being. And the action that we bring into this world are proportionally defining the impact that we are making into this world and the people around us, right? It sounds easy. It's extremely complicated, but effectively goes back to really understanding yourself before anyone else. Because if you don't understand yourself first, how can you expect to help a client? How can you expect to help a friend? How can you expect to help anyone from that perspective? You gotta help yourself before being in a position, in a power state to help anyone else. That's what I truly believe. And I think this is why, as I was thinking about leaving the corporate career behind and going to having a tangible and meaningful impact in the world, I was thinking, how do I start? And, a lot of people started from a website, and a lot of people started from a Word doc. I actually started from pen, paper, long walks in the park, and defining my values. So what I did is I created 12 pillars of my life. The 12 pillars were relationship, family, emotional intelligence, character, careers, and so on. And I really put together a simple framework. Each single pillar was divided by a premise, followed by a purpose, followed by a vision, followed by a strategy. Okay. It's a very long process. It took me probably a year and a half. Okay. Because in certain pillar, I was weaker. So when I got into family, I was burned, from the family that I had previously experienced, what the kind of family life is like. So in there, I had to spend a lot of time thinking. But just taking the time to think about something that usually you're too busy to think about, or you are pretending to be too busy to think about, will start connecting your neurons and will start basically creating a triggering impact in your life.
Pretending that you're too busy to think about. I love that. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned as a coach, and I've had to face for myself. And I always remind my clients as well, as when they say, I don't have time for this. And I'm like, well, who controls your time?
Exactly.
So what's the real block? Because time is not the block. What's the real block?
And I think it's always funny that we always delay working on those things. We say like, well, I have to get this done. And it's so much easier to work on a discrete task or to do, like, oh, well, I have to get this website done, or I have to go do this or whatever it comes up. It's so much easier to conceptualize. There's a beginning, there's an end. I know how to get through that. And then when we come to working on ourselves, we're like, first of all, I don't know where to start. I don't know how long this is going to take. And I don't know where this is going to end up. And yet that portion ourselves is what we carry to every single project anyway. So it would be ideally the place to start if you wanted to improve all the things.
Absolutely. And I think in there is kind of very key process. How and with what do you feed yourself with? Okay. Because if you feed yourself with motivation, inspiration, things that are in a way connecting to your values, to your core being, then trust me that you will feel inspired, you will feel empowered, you will feel motivated. If you go and spend most of your time looking at other people on Instagram, thinking about, oh, wow, they're really rich, I'm not. But how do you know? Yeah. We look at the kind of layer which we now call reality, which is basically a kind of framework of what people want to show, on what people wanted to put out on their social. This is why I took a completely different approach. I try to be, and I basically always am, as vulnerable and fragile as possible. Because I believe that by embracing vulnerability and fragility, we can be the best self, because we got nothing to hide. The moment that we expose our weakness and we acknowledge, okay, it's not really just about exposing them, it's about acknowledging them. You need to acknowledge there is a challenge. I don't call it problem, I call it challenge, because a challenge could lead you to an opportunity of solving it. But if you see there is a problem and there is nothing I can do about it, then you already failed, because you're not willing to find a solution. If you're not willing to find a solution, what would you find? Excuses. And that goes back and appears in a lot of the coaching programs, or a lot of coaching my clients, where they say, well, I don't have time, I'm stressed out. And, you know, a lot of them are no excuses, but they are blockage that could basically be turned around. I was always giving an example I was coaching a single mother, and she's a very talented artist, and she was working in a supermarket. She was saying, Mirko, I really want to be a full-time artist. I can set my own hours. While in the supermarket, I love the interaction with people, even though nowadays it's less and less, because anyway, as you know, COVID, robots, there is anyway the automatic cashier and so on. But she was saying, I would love to find a time to put an action plan together and move from an actual goal to an implementation plan that will lead to bring my vision to life. And I was like, and she said, but I don't have the time. I'm a single mother. I don't have the money. And then basically this is what I did. I put myself in her shoes and I said, okay, what is your biggest challenge? Okay, my biggest challenge is time. Wonderful. Let's break it down. How do you spend your time when you don't want to work and you already put your kid to bed and when you have just some time for yourself? I watch Netflix. Okay, but what is it you enjoy doing the most? Painting. Okay. So if you enjoy painting the most, if you don't find stress from painting, why don't you replace that hour on Netflix on actually fulfilling or pursuing what you enjoy the most, which is painting? So what you do now is you are maximizing your time. So you're taking that 1 hour that before you were spending on watching other people on Netflix and movies and so on actually not only reaching yourself, but going to a very tangible solution to change your life. Fast forward 1 year and a half, she spent an hour a day of free time instead of Netflix, because we canceled it, on painting. A year and a half later, she was able to leave her full-time job in a supermarket that she became a full-time artist. Now she spends more time with her kid. She has time for Netflix if she wants, and her life changed. So why did I tell you this story? Because it's really about identifying a problem, identifying something that you're having, you know, and how do you change that narrative from I can't do it, I don't have the time, to what if I find the time and I start moving forward? What I find is that the biggest challenge is a lot of people expect to start working on it today and get the result tomorrow. Yes. Nah, you gotta have to fall in love with the process. You gotta have to.
Well, and the process is really where the richness is, I find. Being a creator and a builder, I actually have found that the process is where I really enjoy life, is where my strengths are, is where I love, you know, I could work 17-hour days and it doesn't matter. I don't feel it. I'm energized, not for a long time, but for sometimes I can definitely do that. And the destination is that once things are built and created, I get bored. I'm like, okay, what's next? I need to go back to a blank page. And so that's, you know, the alignment, once I figured that out, was key for any job or situations or partnership or any opportunity that comes our way. Is like, if you call me when everything is created and I just need to deliver what you created, I'm not interested.
Absolutely. That is the element of challenging yourself, I think. Yeah. Okay. Is really pushing forward, or even to fail forward, to keep on kind of pushing so many times that you start saying, oh my God, I'm failing. And the more you fail, the more you learn. Of course, define failure is something important. Of course, if you fail really, really big, then I really hope that while you were doing that, you learn really, really big. So you'll learn a lot. This is kind of now how I looking at my life. Sometimes I wake up and I'm extremely frustrated. I say, oh, I wish that I could get there sooner. You know, we all do. But effectively, that's the whole point. If you don't put the work, if you don't learn, if you don't fall in love with the process, you're not going to get there. So the difference between, I think, happiness and unhappiness, or fulfillment and fulfillment, it's kind of that two letters right at the start, right? The UN. So happiness and happiness, fulfillment and fulfillment. So how do you actually turn the two letter, just slash them away, and you focus on your long-term goal? And how do you put and bring the long-term goal to life? Go back into your value in the first place. Value. Sounds silly. A lot of people say, oh, well, why would I spend, an hour? Why would I spend an hour a day working on my value? You don't have to. Spend an hour a day doing what fulfills you, but bear in mind that your values are kind of the backbone of what you do. And for me, I've always been extremely clear. My value is to inspire and empower people with the power of my voice, with the power of storytelling, to ultimately elevate human potential. And how that got translated into the Mastery Hub on a framework on 8 coaches across 5 countries was, okay, we need to find a common ground. And the common ground was, how can we elevate human potential? By helping people to really change and transform the most important aspects of our life, which is not only the business related stuff, but it's really about, do we take care of our body? Are we taking care of our family? Are we taking care of our employees? And so on. What I find is really frustrating sometimes is that nowadays we see the world being measured by money-driven purpose. So you go on Instagram or Facebook, you'll find the average teenager that will come there and say, I'll make you $1 million in 1 hour. Okay, wow. What if you would actually change the narrative from making $1 million to impact 100 lives? By impacting already one life, for me, I'm already sold. I'm already there, ready to listen, because one life is a recollection of millions of moments. And that's the beauty of life in the first place, right? So this is why I kind of led into the concept of conscious leadership, because I wanted to change the leading to create money-driven outcomes to actually create inspiring-driven outcomes. Because if you create a collective vision, people will come and join you. If you create one mono vision, which the only one that can see the vision is yourself, you're gonna ending up become a blind man with sole purpose.
Indeed.
I like the idea of taking the money-based driven, the money-based kind of incentives that we have now. We look for like money-based value in companies. We often do that in life. And then often we strap on just at the very end, like a kind of a almost consolation value. We're like, well, yeah, I'm pursuing money right now because I'm going to, provide a better life for my family, or I'm going to just to be able to be more comfortable, whatever it is, more stable. And we end up justifying this money-based pursuit with this last minute thing. But there's one more question to ask, which is like, well, are you providing that better? Do you actually get to spend time with your family? What does it look like when you do you have the value of, if you're valuing your family enough that you want to give up all your time to go earn the money for the family? What connection to your family do you have? Are you making sure that's also kept up, or is that just a value that's justifying staying in line with the money-based metrics?
Exactly. I find that it's really important to find the equilibrium in life, right? Find the balance. Mm-hmm. Because if you have balance, then everything will start complementing, right? Everything will start complementing each other and harmoniously blending together. I find that as a leader, we should nurture human potential. We should kind of, really shift the way we react. The reason why I led into the conscious leadership was because I spent 5 years working for a Chinese tech company where there was, let's say, a lot of unconscious behavior in terms of the boss, you should follow me. And, I know more because I've been here a long time, or I know more, and by listening to you, I'm not investing my time, I'm disinvesting my time. And I think all that frustration that I've kind of built over the years then brought me into finding a solution. And that goes back to your point. When you're frustrated, you're most creative. That's what I find. When I'm the most frustrated, I'm the most creative because I'm a problem solver. We're all different. So some people are frustrated, they stay frustrated. I sometimes am very frustrated and I really try to find a solution to that specific problem. So with the conscious leadership, what I wanted to do I wanted to reframe the narrative. So going from leading the way to inspire the way. I wanted to go from my way is the only way to create a collective vision where everyone can join in, go from a money-driven to impact-driven. And the point is, I'm not saying you shouldn't make money because otherwise we can't survive. You know, we live in a capitalistic world where we need money to survive. But what I'm saying is, if you lead only with a money-driven narrative, then sooner or later you will have a lot of friction inside your team. But if you lead with an impact-driven narrative and you say, look, what's the biggest impact that you want to have working in this specific place over the next year? And how, as a leader, can help you to get there? How can we do one thing a week that can help you to get closer to that impact-driven framework rather than, we'll do a review, we'll do a KPR, and then we get to giving you a 10% increase. I'll give you the 10% increase, but also I'll give you more life, more life impact, more values with the work that you do. And I was seeing that probably another challenge that I'd seen was going from a me first to a people first. Because when you are inside your head, there's really not much to see. It's only to see what's inside your head. So if you don't bring more heads together, more minds, more people together, that's when you build a collective vision. And you need, effectively, the last point is you kind of have to make people part of something bigger. The reason why most of the people join these startups is because they feel part of something bigger. They leave big corporate job because they feel part of something bigger. So these are all the things that, as a conscious leaders, we can start implementing in our life. And of course, we are the face. We call leaders because we are the face. We are the ones inspiring the way. So we need to learn how to implement to fix our life first and be stable across all the different aspects of it, hopefully most of it, in order to translate that into the people that we need to inspire and lead the way with them.
I like that distinction because there's such a subtle nuance between the me first leadership or thinking that my vision is the way to go or my way and no other ways. And yet there's the subtle nuances that we do need to focus on ourselves first so that we can then become the inspiring leader. But we do have to have some amount of like self-leadership, self-guidance so that we can get to the point of being able to lead others. And the goal eventually is to do it with other people, which I think is the distinction. There's the goal of knowing yourself better to help other people versus knowing yourself better to promote yourself.
Exactly. I think by bringing people together and make them part of something bigger, that's where everything starts to shift. Because you don't become more a machine, you become kind of harmonious team working toward the same goals. And you don't see any more people, let's say, you don't see any more conflict, you don't see people going against each other. You see people working toward the same direction, working together toward the same direction. This is not easy to get there. I mean, we know that creating and working with many different people is challenging, but that is kind of the key of being a leader in the first place. How do you bring people and you make them part of something much bigger than what they're taught was possible before they start that very position?
I personally think that's where life gets to have meaning. I mean, our company name is not accidental. It took us about, I think, 9 months to come up with it. But Siamo, as you know very well, means we are, and it's because it's a big piece of what I believe, which is we are so much more when we work with others and collaborate and connect than we could ever be as individuals. That applies into everything we do and what we can create and how we think about things. And if we approach things from a we perspective instead of a me perspective, which includes what matters to me so that I can show up as my full me to be part of the we.
I love that. And I love the name because, well, I'm Italian, so you don't have to translate it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it right away. And it's a kind of sense of belonging as well, right? Mm-hmm. It's a sense of, again, that being part of something. I feel that in this beautiful planet, we have a lot of limited resources. Mm-hmm. But the only limited resource that we have in this world is human potential. Is the potential that we have in this world it's just limitless. I was really thinking. I was watching a movie about. It was called Everest, and it was narrating the journey of these climbers climbing Everest for the first time, which was what it believed it was impossible before, right? So effectively, by changing and reframing your possibilities, reframing your own stories, you open the world to a limited potential. But it all starts from you. It all starts from what you say to yourself every day. If you wake up to every morning, if you wake up to a person that says, I'm not good enough, I am a failure, I haven't figured out what I want to do in life, then most likely you are kind of stuck in the past, right? You are waking up every morning in a state of consciousness based on past events. But then how do you shift? Well, that's a multi-million-dollar question. It's kind of that very tiny little wins that can make you shift. I've seen people, let's say, changing the life with the power of LinkedIn. I've seen people changing the life with just finding that one hobby or one specific skill they were good at. And they found out when they were, let's say, much older, and that did not matter. So keep investigating your values, because once you found them and once you're working toward them, people will start realizing you're pretty good at it. And your life will start to change. And when you're changing your life, you will change so many people around while you're just doing what you are doing best, which is working toward your values.
I like to tie that back into your idea that you brought in of belonging. When you have that belonging, and I think it's such a natural human thing. We talk about human potential, and at least I think it might be somewhat more American than just because we're very much on the individualistic train. But when we say human potential, we sometimes think about like one person's great achievements. We think about the gold medalists. We think about, Steve Jobs. We think about these like one pillars of people, and that like they had massive human potential. But human nature is to be social, to be interactive, and to work with each other. And none of these big visions happen without that collaboration. And so when we talk about human potential, there's such a tie into the need for belonging, because we can access much more potential when we're all communicating with each other. And it's an interesting tie into values as well, because when we can present our own values and we can tell people what our values are, I think there's a pretty natural human instinct with a lot of people to want to help. We want to help other people. And when we can more clearly articulate what we're looking to do, they're willing to help. And if they can then see that it's okay to articulate what they want to do, we're going to want to help. And then you get this nice self-feeding collaboration where everybody gets to live a little bit more in the values just by being more vulnerable, being more open about what they want, and allowing the human nature, the reciprocity, the connection, the desire to help each other run naturally.
Absolutely. I think as a human beings, we are emotional beings. If you attentively look at most of the headlines on LinkedIn or most of the bios, you will see the word help many, many times over and over again. So effectively, as humans, we always want to be there to help, right? you can see that in everything we do. You want to help by providing value. You want to help by making people's lives better while making your lives better. So that sense of belonging, I think, is something that probably in the next years to come will have to be more intrinsic in the culture of big organization. Because I work for big organization, and what I've seen is that sometimes that sense of belonging is always being kind of, let's say, it's kind of getting interfered by values that are not as rich as the value itself of being human. Because what I mean is sometimes, let's say, you have the focus on empathy, compassion is our focus, but then at the end of the day, you got at the end of the year, you haven't met your goal, and instead of helping that specific person of understanding what has gone wrong, in many organizations, what happened is you kind of get into, look, if you don't do this, well, unfortunately, we have to let you go. A lot of people, I think what they need is a sense of encouragement and understanding themselves and their values in their professional progress, especially junior people. Because you get outside of uni, you get into a place that you don't know if their values are actually going to be in symbiosis with your values. And you're going to be like, oh my God, what's going on? I have no mentorship. I have no one helping me. So this is, I think, something that has to be fixed in big organization. Focus on coaching or mentorship, on helping people to really maximize and understand what are the areas that they need most help with. You know, we all got the sales training. Yes, it's important because it's going to make you sales, it's going to make you more profitable. Got it. But there are so many other things that are so important. How about identifying this and complementing with, going back to the most important point, elevating human potential. Elevating human potential doesn't mean make the company rich. It means making everyone rich. And I don't talk only about money. I'm talking about rich in life, rich in values, rich in family, rich in health. This is what I'm really kind of pushing myself on creating. And sometimes I find a lot of resistance because people say, well, you're trying to create kind of someone is perfect in everything. No, I'm just trying to create something that will enable fulfillment that you can get from the most important aspects of your life, which is very different.
That's beautiful. So I think that we brought up values enough times that it may be time for us to share what our values are.
Yes.
So everybody knows.
Absolutely. I would love to get into the 4 values. And these are values, they are the Mastery Hub values and my values. It's effectively, as I was building it day after day, it was kind of really understanding what are the things that I want this company to focus on. And for me, one of the most important value is empathy. So I find that empathy is kind of the highest form of knowledge. Because if you are an empathic person, that means that you always put yourself in someone else's shoes. So what that do is it discourage reaction. It encourage action. Because sometimes we wake up in the morning, we go to work, and let's say we find very tiny things that can completely ruin our day. Maybe our colleagues is rude, and we don't spend enough time trying to understand, well, maybe something happened. Why don't I just put myself in the shoes for just 1 second? How can you do that? Without being rude, without being aggressive, finding the right moment of confidence, trying to just ask a question, and rather just ask the random question like, how are you? Yes, I'm good. Just trying to understand, is there any way that can make your day better today? That's kind of reframing the conversation, because if you say, are you okay? Everyone is expecting the same thing. Yeah, I'm okay. Well, actually, I'm not okay. But I'm not going to tell you I'm okay because I don't want to kind of bring you my negativity in your life. But if you say, is there a way that I can provide value to you today? Is there one thing that I can do? Can I go and get your coffee? I see that your mood is not as, as shining as always is. Can I help you? So this is something that I usually do, that I was doing at work and I trying to implement as part of my company. And the way we operate as a business. So empathy is the first. The second one goes back to the reason why we're all here. People. If there wouldn't be people in this world, there wouldn't be a world. There would be a world very different from the one that we know. So people first, we make our people the hero of our journey. Because effectively, if they enjoy the journey, if we are leading the journey together, then we'll enjoy it. We can learn to fall in love with the process. There's also something very important of that. It's not a value, but it's more, let's say, a behavior, which is mastering the art of being patient in life generally. As I find a lot of people in the coaching and consulting industry, they expect you, then 1 hour of your time, you'll fix all their problems. I wish. It takes time. It takes time, first of all, to understand the length of your program or the problem in the first place, right? If you spend enough time with yourself every day, you couldn't figure out what your problem is, how can you expect in 1 hour of my time I will solve yours? Very
Miracles.
hard. It's a
Miracles.
Exactly. And then I have two more. So empathy, people first, transparency. So I'm trying to build something which really follows honest and transparency, because honest and transparency, they make us vulnerable. Because if you're transparent, if you say, look, yes, these are my struggles, okay? There is no point that I'm going to spend my time hiding my struggles, but I rather embrace my struggles. A couple of years back, I was so ashamed to always talk about my family, or always talk about my past. When I started being a bit more, say, vulnerable and started embracing failures, embracing rejection, I've seen that there were so many people out there ready to cheer, ready to say, yes, I'm there. And I wish I would have, let's say, the courage that you're having right now. And the thing is, I used to be that person to write to the people that were putting themselves out there to say, I wish one day I would have the courage. And, working day after day and seeing their struggles and seeing my struggles, I actually took a stand and said, you know what? I'd rather embrace the transparency and the vulnerability, and I embrace it completely. And then the last one is impact. For me, life is really all about making an impact, not merely making an income. Making an income is important because otherwise I couldn't sustain my life, my family. But I always see, if you look back at all the biggest billionaires of successful people, money at one point will become meaningless. People that are so rich, they always look for an impact. Because once you kind of got to that numbers of millions and millions of dollars, what is it you're going to do? You're looking for an impact. The question I probably would ask here is, but do you really need to get $1 million to make an impact? No, I see so many people that don't have $1 million. They don't even have hundreds of dollars, but they're still waking up every morning to make an impact, to serve and help others. So these are kind of the 4 defining values of the business. And it took a long time to get there, even though it looks so easy, but it's kind of a back and forth of an emotional ping pong of understanding, where am I going? Is this right? Is this representing me? And I think the investigation will save you years of your life. Years.
Yes, it definitely will. Excellent. Well, thank you for that, Mirko. Alex, your turn.
It was helpful.
Oh, my turn. Well, there's a lot to unpack in what Mirko said. I really like one thing I just want to highlight is the idea that it does take years to do it. And it's, you mentioned earlier talking about like the social media life that people have out there. And we believe we know some portion of their life, but it either has taken a long time to get there. That may not be the full representation. But one cool thing is that we get to talk to you. You're now living this vision where you're being a little bit more vulnerable with the world, but it took years to get there. And, for us, we found out about you a few months ago. It's really interesting just to like get to talk to you. But, we are kind of a sample audience here of finding you in a time when you've already found your values. And it's kind of it's an interesting thing to remember that it takes time to develop these things, and it always changes. We're developing and evolving these as we go. And it's cool to be able to talk to people who are in a good place with it. And it's wonderful to talk to people who are working through this. I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's such a fun part of it. And it actually goes back into my values, which go more towards basically two main pillars, which come down to authenticity and curiosity. And authenticity being kind of the comfort of being yourself, being able to let other people be comfortable and having this just moving more in flow in your day-to-day life because you are aligned with your values, because you can feel like you are making the impact you want to make. You get to like work with the people you want to work with. And I mean that not in just the corporate work sense, just in the work of life sense, what we're doing and how we interact. And that comes back to curiosity, which is the main pillar of the long iterative process it is to develop these things, which I think is just important to continue to think about life, to get it wrong, to get it right, so that you can continue to experiment, continue to be ready to just change, move, and learn and share that. And I think those really are the two pillars that I go back to, and sharing that the connection has always been a through line when I look back at the various jobs between being a tutor, a consultant, an actor, a comedian. All these different pieces were just fun ways to share understanding with people. And I think that is that ended up being some of the most interactive and fulfilling work that I get to do, is being able to explore my own curiosity and share that with others.
That's awesome, Alex.
Yes, very good explanation.
And Cristina?
My turn. So I see you guys have pillars. I have umbrellas of values. I look at my values, and there's just so many things that go into even defining a value in 1 or 2 words. Then I'm like, okay, that value contains these 5 other things. So I would say my top one is definitely human connections, shockingly enough. And and that's where something that you said earlier, Mirko, it reminds me of, like, on those days where I feel down, when I feel drained, when, you know, I lose my confidence, I lose motivation. One of the things that does help me is either look at whether there is a connection that I'm going to make a human connection that day, or look at back at the last few days and figure out and actually reflect on, like, oh, but look at how many connections I've made. I'm okay. I can be alone today. I can have a low day, a low energy day, because I have prospects of connections in the future, and I have tons of connections from the past that I can lean on to find the energy. And I do add the word human to it, because they do need to include authenticity, trust, empathy, compassion. So not just, you know, I don't do well with, I guess, surface connections. We either go deep or it's a waste of my time. And so, so that's a big thing. Another umbrella value that I've found recently, actually, as I keep defining mine and finding, you know, what it really means to me, is freedom. And for me, freedom includes that ability to be my full self, and ability to create the space for everybody else to be free to be themselves. So the authenticity. And I find that if I look back, especially in my career, one of the common themes is that, like, I cannot stay in the lines. I cannot stay in a box. Any manager or boss that I've ever had that has appreciated me is one that lets me just draw and, you know, paint outside of the box, because I'm going to. And if I can't, I'm going to leave, because I feel way too constrained. And I find that that also goes for other people. As a leader, allowing others to not fit in a box and be their true selves really allows them to shine. And I used to think that they would evolve, but they're not evolving, they're finding themselves. That's what's beautiful about it. Once you see that they're finding themselves because the space has been created, it's the ultimate human connection for me.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much, guys. That was really enriching. And it was great to see how a lot of our values are really connecting to each other and they're talking to each other. And going back to your point, Cristina, one of my biggest challenges has always been defining myself. Not sure if it makes sense for you guys, but what I mean by that is to find that one thing that I will devote my life to. And I I love too many things. I always struggle with the fact of people telling you just focus on that one thing and do it and only do that. No, I can't do that. I know that for so many people that is critical, but I'm always been a multitasker. I'm always been someone who's always been so interested in so many different things. And this is why when it came to create my business, the business was actually born as a business consulting, only myself doing communication and leadership. And as I was doing that, I said, but what if I could help so many other people in so many other different areas by simply bringing other consultants, other coaches and consultants across the world along the journey. Boom. That was kind of a self-defining moment, because a lot of the people that I've spoken to, they were, Mirko, just focus on the thing. You're doing a corporate career, stick to it. You're going to become a chief marketing officer in the next couple of months/years. Just do that. And what if I'm not happy, right? What if actually that level of fulfillment doesn't come from what people tell you to, but they come from inside yourself, from your inner voice? And how do you open yourself enough and be vulnerable enough to being able to listen to that voice in the first place? And I think that's so powerful, because as I was trying to define myself, then I said, you know what? I'm going to stop defining me. Yes, I'm a marketer, but also I'm a coach, but also I'm a consultant, but I'm so many other things. And as I go on with my life, probably so many others coming to life. But there would be no one discourage me to say, oh, you do too many things, that you're not being capable of doing nothing. Because I know that every day I wake up and I always try to enrich myself with things that they enrich in my life along the journey. And I know that you guys are in the same place, and that's why probably we're here talking to each other. Because I know that, Alex, you have so many different, you're multi-talented, and so Cristina. And for me, this is so powerful. How do you see it? Have you ever found yourself in that challenge of defining yourself with that one specific avatar? That people look at you and say, oh, wow, what are you exactly? Like, I don't get what you do. Have you ever been there?
I would say that was my main struggle for the first several decades of life. I was thinking there was one book I was supposed to find, and then being frustrated every time I try one on.
Oh, yes. Oh, as soon as I define myself or somebody defines me, all my energy goes into breaking that definition and getting out of that box. I cannot, it's that freedom. I just get put in a cage, and literally I cannot focus on anything else. Nothing else exists except that I have to get out of the cage.
If anybody else is relating.
Absolutely. You kind of need that constant spark. I find where, let's say I set myself to get to a specific goal, and when I achieve that goal, then almost my energy goes low instead of going up, because I say, okay, I got there. What's next? And if I don't define what's next in a short period of time, then I'm going to start thinking about other challenges in life, and I start getting low. That's why I keep my life busy sometimes. But the question is, define busy. Is the business going hand in hand with your values? If yes, then you are on the right journey.
Yeah, you've just described our journey actually with the company, because both Alex and I are creators. And so once we figure something out, like the podcast, it's like that was a project and we had to get it all working. And now that it's basically on autopilot, it's like, okay, what's next? Like that's figured out, and we have it done, and we know those hours every week are dedicated. So what are we creating next? Because we get caged in. It's like our energy lowers, our creativity goes down.
And that is amazing, because effectively I'm pretty sure that when you started looking at the podcast or creating a podcast, it looked like the Great Wall of China. It looked like, oh my God, this is gonna be impossible. So I would actually love to find out, what was your first reaction when you said, okay, let's do a podcast, and then, oh my God, how much work is gonna go into it? What was your reaction at first?
We had to postpone the launch date a few times because it's like, oh wait, there's this, oh and that. So let's add a few weeks to that launch date than originally anticipated.
I think we had this idea fairly early into quarantine, and we didn't launch it until what, October?
Yeah.
6 months later.
Took a while.
I think this is a proof to show that, and I'm the first person responsible because I've been thinking about maybe doing one where I bring all the different people, they're kind of focused in one specific area of their life. But I always been to say, okay, I gotta do this first, and then I'm gonna get there. And sometimes, probably lessness is also a big struggle because you say, oh my God, the podcast is one project itself. But then now looking at your podcast and how many great connections you build over the last 6 months, 7 months since you've been live, I mean, that's transformative. Yes. And I think this is probably a reminder for all the people listening that when you start something, it always looks like the Great Wall of China. It always looks like it's impossible. But then if you don't even have to kill yourself like Elon Musk working 80 hours a week. Don't do that actually, because you're going to be burned out and then you're going to lose all your perspective in life. But just focus on doing something that you enjoy doing and investing time, because sooner or later it will grow. It's just a process of planting a seed.
Mm-hmm. It definitely
in a couple of weeks, couple of months, it would be beautiful. And when it started, it looked like nothing. You couldn't even see it. So it's that, again, that idea of falling in love with the process that is so important as humans.
Yes.
Well, I'm pretty sure we could talk for another 7 hours on this. Yeah. And I think we should come back and circle back for maybe an episode on what it's like to be, actually, this is one thing I will plug. There was a TED Talk that Cristina shared with me recently that was by somebody who coined the term, or at least was using the term, multi-potentialite, which was to describe people who want to do lots of different things and play more of the I'm a lot of different people at once. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. I will put that in the episode notes. And I think we should, if you're interested, Mirko, we'd love to have you back on to discuss that at some point. But this has been an incredible conversation.
Yes, very rich conversation. This is why we started a podcast.
While we're here.
To have these conversations and make these connections. I mean, that's the one thing that Alex and I guess connected on, was we really like to connect with others. So how about a podcast to do that?
Oh, that's so awesome. Imagine now how much energy you'll have as you start your day, and how much energy I'll have as I finish mine. I was on another podcast and the host was saying, every time I walk into a podcast, I start a conversation, and then kind of the level of energeticism start kind of grow and grow and grow. That by the end of the podcast, I feel they have learned, I feel they have applied, and I feel that I'm so energized. And it's been a real pleasure because I feel that I check all the boxes by having the opportunity of being here with you today.
Thank you for joining us. So we do have 2 questions before we leave. One is, what does authenticity mean to you?
That's a beautiful question. I think authenticity is being aligned with who you are as a person and being fully connected with your values. Because by being authentic means doing what you think is right for yourself and what do you think is right for the people around you as well. Because effectively, by only being right for yourself, sometimes you could lose yourself along the way. You need to have the sense of being conscious toward yourself first and the people around you. So that's probably what would be for me.
Beautiful.
That's a great definition.
Beautiful. And the next one is, where can people find you and the Mastery Hub?
Everywhere. You can, it's pretty much everywhere. So you can find me on themasteryhub.com. That's a website. You can find me directly at Mirko, Mirko at themasteryhub.com, or on LinkedIn. That would be Mirko, Mirko, Maccarrone. It's a bit longer. MACCARRONE. That would be LinkedIn. or just the Mastery app on all the channels, including Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Perfect. And we will include all this in the show notes, so everybody can read them as well. Well, thank you again, Mirko. And I will be dreaming of all the food and wine that you're about to have.
Thanks so much for having
that I'm
me,
super
guys.
jealous of.
Well, you should be. It's 25 degrees today. You're sorry.
Yeah.
You kind of should be.
It's like, 12 Celsius gray in London, in Colorado today. So,
well, thanks so much, guys, and much love to you and your audience. I really appreciate you investing your time and for this great conversation. Much love to you guys.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll be in touch
with everything.
Yes. Good luck with everything. Bye-bye.